Welcome, everyone. Today, we are excited to have Dr. Tie Yamato, a colleague and friend, on the podcast. And you know, the episode is going to be good when we have a Brazilian on the episode. Yeah, that's right. Dr. Tie Yamato, she is a professor on the master's and doctoral programs in physical therapy at the University of Cidade de São Paulo in Brazil. She's also a research fellow at the Center for Pain, Health, and Lifestyle. And also a research affiliate at the Institute of Musculoskeletal Health associated with the University of Sydney. She's also a co-leader of the International Collaboration for Early Career Researchers. Dr. Yamato, welcome. And as we kick off Science Her Way, we want our listeners to get to know you. So please tell us about your journey and how did you get into academia and research, and especially on the field of musculoskeletal pain in kids, because that's our discussions will be around today. So welcome.
Well, thanks for inviting me and thanks for having me here today. After 1 year, I graduated in physical therapy while I was doing my specialization, which is pretty common in Brazil. I was interested in research as I love to do my honors. And I had the opportunity to enroll in a master's. At that time, I studied injuries in runners, and I have always really liked physical activity. I'm also a dancer, and I love the sports area. So in parallel with my master's, I worked in a sports clinic. And I think at that time, during my master, I started to know more about evidence-based practice. And so I decided to study a little bit more. And at the end of my master's degree, I had the opportunity to apply for a PhD scholarship in Sydney, Australia. And so I've got the scholarship. I went to Australia. I did my PhD at the University of Sydney, and I studied chronic pain. I also did some methodological studies related to evidence-based practice as well. So I did my PhD at the University of Sydney, and I studied chronic pain. I did also some methodological studies and some studies related to evidence-based practice. And that's how I started to collaborate with Pedro as well, that we're probably talking a little bit later. And after my PhD, I also did a postdoc. And so at that time, I started to study more specifically children and adolescents with pain. And so I went back to Brazil, and I've got a research fellowship there. And then for 4 years, I studied specifically chronic pain or musculoskeletal pain in children and adolescents.
Great. And now you are back in Australia.
Now I'm back in Australia. We just moved back. That's right.
For our listeners, so I met Dr. Yamato at the University of Sydney when I was doing part of my PhD there as well. So we had, for my happy surprise, I got there at the Institute of Musculoskeletal Health, and we had Brazilians running the place. Like, we had more Brazilians than Australians.
That's right.
In the lab. So that was really fun, and that's how I met Dr. Yamato. So
Great.
yeah.
So you're in a research fellowship position there currently?
Yeah, so currently I am a research fellow at the University of Sydney. And I just started like this year, so it's something really, really new. So I've been working in Brazil for the last 5 years as an assistant professor at the physiotherapy master's and doctoral program. And so there I used to teach some disciplines related to methodology, and I also supervised honors, masters, and PhD students. But this year my life just changed a bit, and so we moved country. I'm back in Australia, and now I am a research fellow at the University of Sydney.
Okay, awesome. So we have a lot of students and young listeners on the podcast that may be interested in a rehabilitation-related career.
Mhm.
Can you tell us about your role as a researcher and as a physical therapist? Since you're in a different position now, what does your day-to-day look like in this research fellowship position?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, my life just changed a lot this year. And so nowadays, what I do, I coordinate a big clinical trial where we are recruiting more than 3,000 children and adolescents I also supervise some PhD students here. And so my day-to-day work is basically organizing everything for the trial. So we're starting the pilot trial next month. And so all the things related to the trial, like ethics approval and all the approvals that we need from the university, risk assessment and everything, I work on that. And I also supervise some students, as I said. So I work with them on pretty much on writing. So I help them with writing and getting their studies ready. So basically, this is my day by day.
Busy day,
Wow,
busy,
very
busy day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the big purposes of Science for Way is to highlight the work that women do in science. We know there is still a lot of gap between the production, funding between males and female scientists in a lot of areas, but in our health and sports science, that's also true. And you made some significant contributions to your field. TA is also mom of twins in the middle of everything, moving countries twice. So it's amazing. And I know males often don't get that question, like, how do you manage everything? But how do you manage everything? And what's the advice for other female scientists that are pursuing this career or maybe feel that they can do it because there is no time? What would be your advice and your perspective on it?
Yeah, well, definitely this has been the biggest challenge of the last 6 years because the twins are turning 6. I can't believe. Um, I always dreamed to be a mom, so it is so much joy for me, but there are huge challenges, I must say. So it's very challenging seeing like the gap in your CV is challenging, recognizing that you need to slow down, that things will not happen on the same pace that you used to do. And it is challenging to recognize that, your priorities are different now. But I think the biggest challenge for me, or the biggest change over the last 6 years, um, was being able to kind of block my mind and stop everything and anything on my day or week to be available for the boys when they need. So, for example, doesn't matter if I have like the most important week or many things to do in that day. If the boys got sick, for example, I need to be there, So I kind of learned how to block my mind on this way and just close my computer and I'm there for them. So this, I think, was the biggest challenge like over the last 6 years for me. And because there's no other choice or other possibility in my opinion for this. And so that's not easy at all. And maybe this was like something big for me. But I also got the pandemic period when the boys were very little. So with the flexibility that we have in academia, and I probably need to highlight that because I think this is probably the best thing in our profession. I got used to find all the times to work, not just the conventional time. And so I do work sometimes when the boys go to bed, for example. And for me, this is fine, as soon as I was there for them when they needed me, I feel fine. So that's kind of the things that I learned through this journey with motherhood and, being a researcher. So maybe my tip would be around that. So try to find a way that works for you in terms of doing your job, doing what you like to do, but also having all the time for your kids if this is the case. Because, they will grow so fast. And that's it. Just adjust your expectations. And I think this can take a while. And this will probably be good to not get too frustrated during the journey.
Well, I think
Yeah.
Kelly can relate. Kelly's also a
Yeah.
mom of 3. So
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's so true what you said. I have 3 boys as well, and it certainly is an adjustment when you go from, I don't know, like loving work and really being a highly motivated person. It is a hard adjustment, and so I think what you said is really true in terms of like separation. I have to leave my work at work so that I can be a mom when I get home. But
Exactly.
there's definitely challenges. I also think too, it's important to make some time for yourself too. And I'm just curious, like, are you able to manage that? Or you said you love physical activity, and so do you have any
Yeah.
outlets as well?
Yeah, so when the boys were very little, I didn't have time at all. I think also because we had the pandemic, it was like so busy anyway. But I found, like, I put to myself like a name to do something for myself, like since last year when the boys turned 5. I said, okay, now I think I need to do that because otherwise I'll never have time, you know? If you don't aim to,
Yeah.
I think it's really hard. So last year I said, okay, this year I'll start to do something for me. And I know it's going to be hard. I know it's going to be challenging. We like, we moved country this year and I know we don't have much people around, so it's more challenging even. But yes, I do. Since last year, I started to have my time to do physical activity, and I'm back to ballet, which is my old passion. Yeah, so I kind of manage that like twice or 3 times per week. I go. The boys stay with my husband, and that's it. Sometimes it's chaos, they're crying, they're not so well, but I just close the door and then I try to focus that time on myself because it's really, really hard to keep that. It's really, really, really easy just to give up, like, oh, today I'm probably not going or blah, blah, blah. But I try to commit to myself and do like those 2 or 3 hours per week with something that I like and
Yeah.
it's just for me. So yeah.
I think it takes care of yourself and you're able to be a better mom in the end. So whatever that is that, can help your brain be a bit more calm, then it's definitely good.
I think it's
That
so
is
this exposure. Kelly runs
Yes.
marathons. Dr. Yamato does ballet. So yeah, we can do it all. Like we can.
Yeah, if you have to, I don't want to say it's non-negotiable, but put it on your calendar. And I mean, it kind of is non-negotiable. I try really hard not to let other things bump
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
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 Me too.
So you guys can see that we have very accomplished guests and hosts here at Science Her Way. So in addition to everything that Dr. Yamato just mentioned, she also has like a very interesting experience in working on a scientific database. That's not very common, right? To see that behind the curtains of a scientific database, a lot of people access databases, but they don't see how all the work and everything that needs to be done to run a scientific database, right? Dr. Yamato is affiliated with the Physical Therapy Evidence Database and worked for many years there as well. So can you share a little bit on what is the Physical Therapy Evidence Database and what is your work on it and its relevance?
Yeah, sure. So Pedro is a physiotherapy database, and it has been designed to support the practice of evidence-based physiotherapy. It gives you access to the best research evaluating the effects of physiotherapy interventions. And so the most rigorous research methods, let's say, are indexed on Pedro. So randomized control trials, systematic reviews, and practice guidelines are there. And I think the main characteristic of the database, I guess, is that the trials that are independently assessed for methodological quality using the Pedro scale are there. So we have a score for each trial indexed on the database, and the quality rating is used to quickly guide the user so readers can find the best evidence on a specific topic. So yeah, it's very useful and helpful for physiotherapists all around the world, and it's free available all around the world. I have been collaborating with Pedro for the last 10 years. So I started helping to to the database when I started to work searching for guidelines to be indexed on that. And I also worked as a Pedro rater, so doing this judgment or this classification on methodological quality for all the trials included in that database. And I was also involved in creating the Pedrinho blog, which is an arm of the Pedro database, but aiming to bring like the most recent evidence in physiotherapy in Portuguese. And so in Brazil, we have a huge barrier with language. And so Bruno is my husband, we did the PhD together, and we started to work on Pedro together. And we thought, wow, I think the physiotherapists in Brazil would benefit so much if we could try to translate a little bit of the evidence that we have coming out from Pedro. And so we started this blog like, I don't know, 7 years ago, maybe. It's been quite helpful for the physiotherapists in Brazil as well. And more recently, the Pedro database has been managed in a different way. So there are few satellites around the world that now manage the whole database, and one of them is based in Brazil. So I started to lead and co-lead the satellite in Brazil, and so I've been coordinating the satellite in Brazil to help managing the whole database. And yeah, Pedro is such a nice project, and I love, like, I know who were the developers, like my PhD supervisors, two of them, they were co-founders of the Pedro database, and so it's very special project for me. And Pedro is produced on a non-for-profit base, and so we always highlight the importance of receiving donations from all around the world to support Pedro as well. So
That's very cool. I also want to kind of switch gears here and discuss one of your more recent papers published in the the Brazilian Journal of Physical Therapy, that talks about the prevalence of musculoskeletal pain in children and adolescents in Brazil. Can you walk us through the aims and some of the main findings of the study?
Yeah, sure. So this is a cross-sectional study that just came out last month, and we aimed to determine the 1 month prevalence of what we call disabling musculoskeletal pain in children and adolescents. So disabling musculoskeletal pain was defined as any self-reported pain in the musculoskeletal system that resulted in school absence or interfered in normal activities or recreational activities. And so that brought some impact on children and adolescents' life. And we had a sample of more than 2,500 children and adolescents, and 27% reported this type of pain. So back pain was the most frequent region reported, and I think that's the main finding of our study. But we also investigate the perception of the parents about this pain with their kids. And so another finding of our study is that the parents tend to underestimate their kids' pain in about 17% of the case. So this is also like kind of another important finding of our study.
What do you mean when you say underestimate? Like the kids will report pain, but the parents won't address that?
Yeah, so in 17% of the case, the kids were reporting pain, but the parents, they said they don't believe the kids that have pain. So, and this has been supported by the literature as well. And so that's why we decided to investigate, because a lot of studies, they've been saying that when you are interested to know like a condition from a children and adolescents, it's better to ask them directly instead of asking parents. And so you can have like a better perspective of the condition. So that's why we decided to ask for like the kids individually. And so they answered the questionnaires at school, and they didn't have any influence from the parents.
What did you find were some of the what was causing the pain, or what were some of the contributing factors in these children?
Yeah, so in this study, that was a cross-sectional study. We were not interested to um, to investigate the cause of the pain, but we also did a cohort study where we followed the participants for 18 months. And so in this cohort study, we were interested to know like which factors could contribute to the development of the pain. And so this study is been finishing, and hopefully this year will come out to this year. But if I can spoiler here a little bit, psychological symptoms seems to be the most important factor related to the development of this type of pain. So yeah, but this is the results from another study, as I said.
Yeah. And I know that because I follow Dr. Yamato's research a little bit. There's a lot of myth around pain as well, right? For kids, like carrying backpacks in a certain way would cause pain. Is that true? Is that not true? I think that's an important information to be out.
Yeah, so a few years ago, we also did a study on backpacks because this is another common concept in the society. So everyone thinks that the heavy backpack can cause back pain in children and adolescents. And so our study showed that backpacks, like the weight of the backpacks, there's no relationship with the development of pain. And probably another common concept that we could touch a little bit here is the growth pain. So everyone kind of recognize pain in children and adolescents as the growing pain. And this is kind of a concept that as well, there's no sufficient evidence to support this idea that the growth causes pain itself. And so we should probably stop using this term and try to understand better this condition, and understanding better that children and adolescents, they do report musculoskeletal pain. We don't know the cause, but we do know that this type of pain can cause impact in their life. So those that are reporting this type of pain and that they also report the impact, they should probably bring us attention, and probably those that report this type of pain for a long period or that reported persistent symptoms, they need to receive a better care. So I think kind of a take-home message here is that we need to listen what the kids are saying. And as a parent, we probably need to understand the condition and validate the symptoms. And as health professionals, we need to also understand the condition and be prepared to deal with those patients, because nowadays we are not really prepared for that, in my opinion.
Perfect. We will definitely leave the information. If you want to read more about this paper, we will leave the links so you can access the full paper that Dr. Yamato is talking about. For us to close up, we know that research can sometimes be full of challenges and surprises. Do you have any memorable moments that you could share with us that that were really challenged and you overcame those challenges? I think that's a kind of a inspirational moments for our students, fellow professionals. So I think we would really like your input on that.
Well, I've been through big challenges. I don't know. Maybe the biggest challenge for me, I think, it's like the research activities. All the activities that involve research are in English, and so I think my biggest challenge was language, like the barrier of language so far. So I'm not sure if it could apply for your students, but maybe for those that have English as a second language, I think the biggest challenge for me was, and it still is, this. And so presenting in big international conference when you know who is there listening you, and also like participating in podcasts like this one as well. This is always challenging for me, because like you want to express what you know, and sometimes can be hard. But maybe a fun one. I don't know. I will not tell the detail here, but I think when you start your research journey, you start to go to international conference and meet all those famous people that you know from like their papers, and I think it is so fun and unforgettable when you meet those research idols for the first time. So I think I have like good memories when I first met like all those people that I like for me was so far away, and then suddenly you are there on the international conference just having a conversation, some knowledge, and yeah, it's been great. So I think this is this is one of my big challenges and something to remember.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to close up, any final remarks, Dr. Yamato, that maybe something that we have not asked you and you want to share, something that we missed?
No, I think that's it. It was great. It was great conversation. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Yeah, great to meet you.
Yeah, so to our listeners, if you found this episode as engaging and insightful as we did, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. And follow Science Our Way on social medias and YouTube. And stay tuned for more stories like Dr. Tie Yamato. Thank you so much for everything.